everyone goes to treat the thyroid. But that's usually not the problem. Like 99.9% of the time, the thyroid is reacting to try and support your body based on what's happening inside of it. As if your thyroid is not active the way it's supposed to be, your metabolism starts to slow down, your body doesn't burn calories as well, you can't use energy as well, you can't produce as much energy, and it makes your body feel like you're under a lot of stress because you don't have the energy to perform what it is that you're demanding of your body. Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness coaching company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as you start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it's the hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or waking around the middle. That seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere, despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet it feels like nothing is working. You are putting in all this effort and you are just moving backwards. But we know now that your body is inherently different now that you've gone through these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to really help you understand how your body changes in this time of your life so you can reach your health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and really understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today I have the amazing coach Kariana on the podcast, and we are talking all things thyroid, all things adrenals and hormones, and your ability to be able to lose fat, because we know this is a big problem. We know thyroid issues are very prevalent in women. Adrenal problems are very prevalent in women. Perimenopause seems to just really amplify things. So we dive deep to help you understand how to open up those fat burning pathways and get control of your body again. Coach Kariana is here with me today, and we are talking all things thyroid, all things adrenals, how they connect, because truthfully, when our thyroid isn't functioning well, when our adrenals aren't functioning well, our fat burning pathways are just off. You know, our fat, we can't burn fat, and it's really tough, and people feel like garbage, and it's not a good situation to be in. And we know during perimenopause and menopause, we are going to see this increase. So it's a very important topic to talk about. Kariana and I did a podcast on thyroid back on episode number 4, I think it was 3 or
way at the beginning.
Yeah, so long ago. And we are like, this is going to be episode 199, which is insane. So it was time to talk about it again. So we are talking about the thyroid adrenal connection, and what this refers to is the relationship between the thyroid gland and the adrenal glands, and two key components of the endocrine system that really help regulate our metabolism, how good our body is at burning calories, how good our body is at, creating energy so we don't feel sluggish and not motivated and like garbage. And then also our stress response. So we're not like, ooh, looking back, I definitely overreacted, because we all have those moments. And then, of course, once we are in this situation, we have a ton of really not awesome symptoms. So we want to make sure that, we are going to connect all the dots for you guys and help you really get through this, because we talk to so many people who are hypothyroid, or they get their labs back and they look quote unquote normal, but it's like, you are so close to being out of that range. Like, we should have been doing stuff to really help you sooner. If you want more specific information on like how the thyroid itself works and how it directly impacts our body, you can head back to episode 104. And then also somewhere in the beginning of the first 5 episodes that we ever did, we talked about thyroid as well. But let's talk about the connection between thyroid and stress and adrenals specifically. So the adrenal glands and cortisol production. We know that the adrenal glands are going to produce cortisol, that stress hormone that when we're in fight or flight, it goes up. It is our body's main stress hormone, and it's going to help regulate our blood sugar. It's going to help regulate inflammation. It's going to help regulate energy. It is not a bad thing. What happens is, though, when it's elevated for a long period of time, which is like from the moment we wake up to when we go and go close our eyes. And even then, sometimes it stays elevated, which is why we're waking up at 2:00 in the morning, thinking that we can solve world hunger. And did I actually lock this door? And I think I left my coffee mug at work. Is the car door locked? Like we go from like little things to I could change the world at like 3 a.m. in the morning. And so what we see is when these adrenal glands are on all the time from under eating, over exercising, being go, 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 fasting, not having enough carbohydrates, dieting multiple times, dieting too low, dieting for too long, more than 12 weeks. We've got, deadlines and career stress and relationships and kids and work. And then our car broke down and we're stuck in traffic. And then the TSA person looked at me funny at the airport and I didn't like that. And the person in the coffee line was like standing too close. Like, we just get so worked up, and then social media and all the blue light. And it's so easy to get like worked up and get all this negative stuff all of the time. And, we're also then supposed to be like skinny, and we're also supposed to be like super nice. And then we're supposed to be following a certain faith. And then we got to reach, like all the milestones of married by this age and have this many kids and this many dogs and all the things. And it's a lot. So we can't say that we're not stressed, because even if we're like, oh, I'm not stressed. You are. I was that way too. I still think that way sometimes. This is going to be a stress on my body because I'm quote unquote on. We are on all of the time. And so when this happens, our body blocks our fat storing pathways, which is not good. Our storing pathways just get pushed and pushed and pushed because we're in a state of stress. Our body's trying to conserve energy. And so even if you're eating less and moving more, your body is saying, we need to store, we need to store. So you can do all the right things and still really struggle. And we know that when we're in this like chronic stress kind of situation, which is literally all of us, I don't care what you say, you are more stressed than you think you are. Everybody always is. And so you're going to have these elevated cortisol levels, which eventually will lead to low cortisol as well. But we know that if we are in this elevated high stress state, it's going to interfere with your thyroid. And so what we know is that when that cortisol is high, when we are in this high stress state, we are going to see a reduced conversion of T4 to T3. So T4 is the inactive thyroid hormone, and then T3 is our active hormone. It's what we can actually use. So we have a reduced conversion from the non-usable to the usable one. And so there's less available for us to actually use. We also see an increase in reverse T3, which blocks our T3 from working properly. So what happens is we have less of the active form, but then we also have more of the reverse T3 blocking that little amount that we can actually use. And this is going to disrupt our thyroid hormone receptor sensitivity as well, making the cells less responsive to thyroid hormone. So now we need even more thyroid hormone than we did before, but our body is producing less. So you can see how, oh man, this is an issue. And we see this a lot in people. I've worked with a couple women who were even like in their 20s and 30s. I'm thinking of one person specifically who was 26, and she did blood work like pre and then also during a fat loss phase. And when she was cutting calories because of that increased stress, we did see that, T3 was decreasing. We had less thyroid hormone. And so we know that this is a stress, and then we're going into hormone changes. And when our hormones start to decline, stress can go up even higher. So before you could handle a 9 out of 10, now it's only a 5 out of 10. And so we see thyroid issues become more prevalent in women. It's like 80% more prevalent in women than men or something like that. It's like a crazy astronomical stat. And part of this is hormones and our ability to buffer stress. And most of us are never eating enough, and we're just go and doing all the things and being the taxi mom. And I also, crazy stat, sidebar, we get stressed out with kids. You know why? Kids are 90% out of all the adults that they're in front of to misbehave, 900% more likely to misbehave with their mom than their dad, their grandparents, teachers. 900. And I was like, whoa. Tell me being a parent and being a mom isn't stressful, because you're actually dealing with that stuff so much more, and it's a good thing because they like feel safe and they trust you, so they're willing to push their boundaries a bit more. But that also kind of sucks.
That's a wild stat. 900% right? More solely on the mom.
Solely on the mom. And I was like, awesome, because we want like 4 kids. So I'm like, this is
900 times 4.
Woo!
Wow. Okay, so let's also talk about how thyroid function can affect our adrenal health as well. So Steph, you just kind of touched on how our adrenal health or our cortisol levels can actually affect our thyroid and slow our thyroid down. Unfortunately, the inverse can also happen. So if our thyroid is not working properly, and we'll start with hypothyroidism, because that's usually the most common thyroid condition that we see in women, especially especially in the menopausal transition, but in women in general, hypothyroidism is very common, which is a slow thyroid, as I said. It can also inversely stress the adrenal glands or cause stress on the body or create more cortisol production because reduced metabolism, first of all, which is what is hypothyroidism, because thyroid, remember, is like our thermostat, right? So it sets the metabolism for the day. If our thyroid's not working, our thermostat's quite low, our metabolism is slowing down. This, of course, can lead to lower energy, and this can actually cause the body to rely more on cortisol for the energy. So we almost, with that hypothyroidism, become more dependent on that stress hormone because it's not necessarily needed in healthy amounts just for stress. It's supposed to go up at the beginning of the day to help wake us up and get our body moving. So our body becomes more dependent on cortisol when it's like, okay, well, my thermostat's really low from my thyroid. How else am I going to be able to function and get through this day with all these 1 million things that I have to do? The other thing that happens is that hypothyroidism can actually cause blood sugar imbalances. And we all know that by now that blood sugar can also lead to cortisol increases or needing more cortisol or a higher cortisol demand. So this can actually further, of course, strain your adrenal glands and cause more stress on your adrenals and more stress on your body because from that hypothyroidism, we are seeing those blood sugar imbalances and that blood sugar dysregulation as well, which again will cause that chain reaction of more stress, but then also more insulin resistance potentially, and then again more stress. So we have this really vicious cycle where stress may have been this initial cause of thyroid issues, like Steph said, but then those thyroid issues are going to further exacerbate your stress response and actually make your body more reliant on cortisol in order to help make up for the thyroid that's not working anymore.
And that doesn't mean like to cut carbs, because like we know carbohydrates help support your thyroid function. Like low carb diets will reduce thyroid function. We know low carb diets will increase cortisol. Cortisol will then decrease thyroid function even more. Thyroid function, when it slows down, increases cortisol even more. And so by eating low carb, you actually make that cycle worse. And so we need to make sure you're having adequate carbs to support that. And it's just learning how to eat carbohydrates to avoid those blood sugar spikes. So having some veggies and protein first before dipping into your carbs. If you're having a sandwich, you're having a side salad or some veggies and dip or a hard-boiled egg first. Like if you're having meat and potatoes and veggies, you're eating a bit of your meat and a bit of your veggies before having your potatoes. These are all things that help with your blood sugar so much, but we know also if you're in a high stress state, like you're not eating enough carbohydrates, you're not eating enough calories, you're go, go, go. Your body thinks you don't have enough energy, despite the fact that you have these fat stores and things that you can utilize. And your body will actually tell your liver, hey, we need more sugar in our bloodstream to be able to do the things that we need to do. And so then your liver starts releasing sugar into your bloodstream, but it only has so much. So then it goes and breaks down muscle mass and turns it into sugar, dumps it into your bloodstream. Your blood sugars go up, insulin goes up. That blood sugar regulation struggle starts to happen in the absence of carbs, in the absence of food because of stress. So it can become this very vicious cycle because people assume, oh, I must just fast and cut carbs to help my blood sugar, when in reality that's making the thyroid function worse, which increases cortisol more, but also the low calorie intake, the fasting low carb also increases cortisol, which makes your thyroid function worse. And all of that makes your body worse at burning calories, increases inflammation, blocks your fat burning pathway, sends you into that storage pathway. So you're doing all the things that you think you need to do to quote unquote be healthier and lose fat. And in the end, what you end up doing is getting fatter, losing muscle mass, slowing down your thyroid function, giving yourself insulin resistance, burning out those adrenals, and you actually have such a higher risk of developing all these different chronic conditions, tanking your hormones, struggling with liver health. Like it gets so, I don't want to say so bad, but it does get so bad. And people don't realize the very things that they're trying to do to fix it is like just further feeding this system that's like, you can't get off a hamster wheel, and that's why.
And this menopausal situation, it is almost like this kind of mini microcosm of the way that we've been raised in society to believe we need to take care of our bodies. And we say this all the time to our clients as well. It's not necessarily just this menopausal transition that caused all these issues. It was the last 20 years before that led to your body finally saying this is enough, because we're told in society that eating less and moving more is quote unquote taking care of ourselves. And a lot of the times we have never been told or never been educated properly on the fact that we're actually under eating and we're actually over exercising and we're actually not dealing with our stress. And that's going to create this snowball effect under the surface where your body finally just shuts down. And unfortunately, the menopausal transition for most of us is where we start to see that shutdown, because when those hormones change, we have all these other issues that your body now can't handle. And it was already struggling to kind of like stay above water with all the things that you were doing before. So the carbohydrate piece is so much more important than we might think it is. And that low carb piece is a big thing that we see with our clients, that as we start to add back in carbs in a balance of protein and fats and right blood sugar timing, we do see that the body actually does start to come kind of back online and people start to feel better and their thyroid actually comes back alive and all those fun things for sure.
The thyroid is never the problem. No. Like when people are like, oh, it's my thyroid. I'm like, no, it's not. Like your thyroid is like doing what it's supposed to do to try and like keep you alive. Like it's this is a symptom. Like hypothyroidism and struggling with thyroid is a symptom of something else going on in your body. It's been going on for a long time. And this is why it drives me crazy when people don't test like a full thyroid panel. I'm like, you need to know all of the things. Like you could have normal T3 levels, but if you have a ton of reverse T3 and they don't test that, like you can't actually utilize it, right? And so this is where we see a lot of problems with women, and the range is normal, and then they don't treat you until you're out of the normal range. Normal is not optimal, first of all, and if we see the trend moving in the wrong direction, you want to stop it before it builds this crazy momentum and you're struggling so much. Like that would be like, oh, my blood pressure is high. I'm going to wait until it's like on the verge of heart attack ranges before I'm going to do something about it. But it's like nobody thinks about it when we talk about chronic conditions, when we talk about lab work. Like we want to make sure things are as good as they can be, that you are feeling as good as you can. And if we're seeing things trend in the wrong direction, let's stop it before it becomes a problem. And this is like when we see people and we test, it's like this has been going on for a very, very long time, unfortunately. Just people had no idea, and like estrogen was like kind of making up for it. It was like picking up the pieces and helping support inflammation and helping support your blood sugar and all of those things, the thyroid, and helping support, like cortisol levels. And then when she leaves, it's just like everything falls apart because she's like the mom that's like, picking up after everyone, making sure everything's clean, the fridge is full, driving people places. And then when she's out, the household falls apart. So you shouldn't be like upset that this is happening. You should be like, wow, I was not helping you at all. Thank you for your service for the past 45 years. I need to now train the rest of my team and the rest of my family to like have this household working better, right? Like that's the kind of approach that we need to be taking it, because it's not like menopause causing it. It's just menopause exposes a lot.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. I was going to say estrogen's kind of like that employee at work that does a bunch of stuff that people don't really realize.
She's you.
Now, I'm not going to quit though. My analogy was that when estrogen quits, whole company.
No, please don't leave me.
Don't worry.
Do not let this business go into menopause. Do not let this business go into menopause.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit first and foremost. We're going to talk a little bit more about testing later on like what can we do or what can we look at to at least get some numbers and help ourselves. But we're going to look at the other side of the thyroid picture, where a lot of women also can get hyperthyroidism, which is your thyroid working overtime. And surprisingly, you can actually get some similar symptoms to hypothyroidism. And of course, hyperthyroidism can also put a lot of strain on your adrenal glands and your cortisol levels as well. So hyperthyroidism can, of course, increase what we call metabolic demands. So this also forces the adrenals to keep up with those energy needs as your thyroid starts working overtime. This can cause a lot of like anxiety for people, shakiness, blood sugar issues again, right? So those are some big things that we tend to see. This hyperthyroidism or thyroid working overtime, which can sometimes happen before hypothyroidism. So it can sometimes start to work faster and then go down and almost like tank itself. But it can also drive that higher cortisol production because that's going to lead to that adrenal burnout over time. And remember, if you're already stressed and then your thyroid starts trying to work overtime because it has this stress response in it, and we're stressing ourselves out even more, we could not only get into a position where we're hypothyroid over time, but now we have adrenal burnout. And that is another thing that's really hard to come back from and takes so much time to heal. We also see that if we are looking at symptoms of this imbalance of thyroid and adrenals, we do usually see hyper or hypo, actually surprisingly, is of course we see a lot of fatigue. And so again, menopausal transition, we always usually, and we're going to talk a little bit more about like actually how this affects menopause itself here in a little bit. But for most people, we are seeing that there's morning sluggishness, there's afternoon crashes. That can actually be a thyroid and adrenal connection issue and not just like, oh, I'm not eating enough or something like that, right? So make sure that you're kind of looking at the whole picture there. Brain fog, memory issues. Again, we're going to talk about that in a second because we all know these are menopausal symptoms that we usually say, oh, it's estrogen's fault, right? It actually might be something that's more than that. Weight gain, difficulty losing weight. Does any of this sound familiar to anyone? Sleep disturbances. A big piece of the thyroid adrenal connection being disturbed or being imbalanced is waking up at that 2 or 3 a.m. wide awake with that energy or anxiety surge that Steph was kind of saying, where you're trying to solve world hunger. Or did I leave the garage door open? Which, side note, we actually did last night, but I checked it and I closed it. Go me. Cold intolerance, that's a big one too, or heat intolerance. So any kind of like temperature fluctuation intolerance. Cold intolerance is typically more of that thyroid related intolerance, whereas heat intolerance can be more of that cortisol related intolerance. But again, we're looking at thyroid going either slower or overworking. And so that can cause both of those intolerances. And then of course, again, cause more stress in either direction here. Mood swings, anxiety, depressive symptoms, mental health issues that you never had before that are suddenly coming out of the woodwork. Those are usually very big symptoms of this thyroid and adrenal connection being super imbalanced. So maybe there's communication issues, whatever that looks like. Hair thinning, hair loss on the head. Again, all of these things are connected, but this is a huge piece of actually the stress and the thyroid connection as well. And then as we already talked about, blood sugar imbalances. So we're getting sugar cravings, especially at night or like in the afternoons. We're getting hypoglycemic or like dizzy and shaky between meals. We are starting to get insulin resistance. Maybe on our blood testing, we're starting to see our A1C go up. These are all symptoms as well of this thyroid adrenal imbalance that we are looking at.
So to summarize the last 20 minutes where we went on multiple ranty tangents, before we get into like causes and like how to actually like fix the things, because now you guys are like, wow, this sucks. Yeah, it kind of does. I'll be honest. It really does. So stress is going to impact your thyroid when you are in that stress state, even when you don't perceive it as stress, because you're like, oh, life is better now. Doesn't matter. You're probably still stressed and it takes a long time for your body to like recover from that stuff. Your adrenals are going to release more cortisol. Over time, that's going to suppress your thyroid production. It'll reduce the conversion of T4 into T3, so there's less usable thyroid hormone available. It can lead to symptoms of low thyroid function like the low energy, the weight gain, the brain fog, cold sensitivity. Then we have how the thyroid can actually stress out your adrenals, because if your thyroid is not active the way it's supposed to be, your metabolism starts to slow down. Your body doesn't burn calories as well. You can't use energy as well. You can't produce as much energy. And it makes your body feel like you're under a lot of stress because you don't have the energy to perform what it is that you're demanding of your body. That is a stress. When your body perceives that it does not have the energy or capacity to meet the demands. And so this can push your adrenals to work harder, leading to, adrenal fatigue, cortisol imbalances. And we see this in Dutch testing with our clients all of the time. When we can fix the cortisol issue, it is wild how much better people feel, how they could be trying to do all the right things for so long and see no changes. And now we go into a moderate deficit and now we're seeing changes. And then we have how these two work together, right? Both the glands are going to help manage your energy. They're going to help how well is my body good at burning calories? Because if your body sucks at burning calories, guess what? Weight gain, very easy. Weight loss, very hard. You're going to see that your mood is going to be way better if these are working properly. You have a resilience to stress. When someone says something meal, I had my breakfast, I swear. When someone says something mean to you, you aren't like immediately like, oh my gosh, you have the self-doubt, you feel so terrible, it ruins your whole day, you're not as emotional, you're not as reactive, you're not trying to like, you know, when your like partner's breathing beside you in bed, and you're just like, wow, do you have to breathe so loud? Like you don't have that anymore. And both of you are so much happier for that. He can breathe without pissing you off and like be alive, which is awesome. And you don't want to smother him with a pillow. Like it's such a good situation when we're feeling good, right? When these glands are working properly. And if one is off, the other is going to struggle to keep up. And then like they're going to become imbalanced. And then you're going to get this vicious cycle of like one's low, so the other one's low, and then it goes high. So high cortisol to low thyroid. Low thyroid will make cortisol go up even higher. High cortisol will make thyroid go down even lower. And you're going to have this vicious cycle, which we have to break. And everyone goes to treat the thyroid. But that's usually not the problem. Like 99.9% of the time, the thyroid is reacting to try and support your body based on what's happening inside of it. And so we need to address the root cause so that your metabolism doesn't go to crap. So you can actually lose fat, feel good, and you don't want to smother everyone with a pillow, right? Very important characteristic that we want to have these days.
It is amazing when our clients come to us and, you know, they know they're a little bit moody or irritable, and then things start to get fixed throughout the program. And they're like, oh my God, like I did not realize how much my irritability actually affected like my life. And now I can just be so at peace with like my partner breathing beside me or like my kid bothering me all the time. Like I never realized how much it actually did affect me until we started to fix it. And then you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, we have partners who like email us and they're like, thank you for giving my wife back. Yeah. Right. And that's like, that's the best. Or people are like, man, like my kids were like, oh my gosh, mom, like, this is so great. You never do this with us. And it's like, it makes you feel so good.
Victories are so much more important for most of us, I think. For coaches, for sure, because we want to see all of our clients live with vitality.
Those are the ones we celebrate more.
Absolutely. Okay, so segueing actually into the causes or some causes of imbalances that we do see between this thyroid and adrenal connection. And at the end of this, we are going to talk about, okay, so how do we actually fix this if we're not going to be treating the thyroid or if treating the thyroid isn't actually like the thing that's going to fix maybe the root cause. So let's talk about what actually might be causing this. The first one, as Steph mentioned, chronic stress. Now, stress looks different for everyone. And just like you talk about on your recent Dutch test, Steph, is that
so bad.
Yeah. And like, it's so funny because a lot of people don't perceive what actual stress is as stress, because when we think of stress, it's like our partner annoying us or us being irritable about something. But stress can also be undereating, over-exercising, you got in a car accident 5 years ago and you still have chronic pain, you had surgery. Like there are so many things that your body holds on to as stress. And a lot of the times work for you, right? Like you're always turned on, you're constantly working.
But I love it. I love it so much. And like the teachers, the nurses, the people taking care of other people, high execs, honestly, stay-at-home moms, you can love it, right? It is such a hard job. You are on all of the time. And so when you are on, even though you love it, like when I go to events and I speak, like I love it. It is amazing. I almost always crash after it because like you are on for like 3 days chatting to people and it is so fulfilling and it feels amazing, but it is a stress on your body and we don't realize that.
And one thing we always have to remember, and this is why we have one of our in-house assessments for our client intake is a stress assessment, because whether or not you've rated yourself high on the stress level, your body might be telling us a completely different story. And so we need to make sure we get the right answer, right? And when we're in the functional nutrition space, the first thing that typically we're always taught as functional nutrition practitioners is that thyroid issues are actually always a product of a lifestyle that your body can't handle. So sorry, like put your ego aside here. And a lot of the times, no matter how much you love it, we still have to recognize that this is intentional stress on the body. And there comes a point where there might be too many, even if they're good things, there's too much stress still on the body that we need to be taking care of. So that's kind of always our first root cause that we look at, because cortisol is kind of this queen hormone. It influences everything in the body, regardless if those other imbalances are going to affect cortisol as well. We know that cortisol probably was the fire starter or the catalyst for a lot of these issues that we're seeing. The next one that we do see as a very primary cause of thyroid and adrenal issues are systemic inflammation. And so that is where we start to see those fat storing or those building pathways being stuck on, and we're not seeing that nice balance between the storing and then the burning, and then the storing and then the burning. And we're just seeing that storing pathway stuck on. And so we're not able to actually open up those burning pathways when we need to. And we do want to see a nice symbiotic relationship between those pathways. Stress can cause systemic inflammation, but other things can also cause systemic inflammation. So definitely something that you want to look into. If you have an autoimmune condition, so you're like, oh, I have Hashimoto's, that's why I have hypothyroidism. That is an inflammatory response, typically caused by stress, because your body is in a lifestyle or an environment that it is not able to actually deal with properly, and that's how it responds. Undereating, again, a stress. Eating inconsistently, again, a stress on the body, but these are big factors that we tend to see with clients as well. So maybe we're eating 800 calories on Monday because we're trying to be good with our diets, and then by the weekend we're like, F this, and we're eating pizza on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or whatever that looks like for you, your bottle of wine on the weekends. That's going to cause, there you go. That's going to cause that unpredictability in the body, which takes away that layer of safety for yourself. A diet low in nutrients. So we actually don't often consider that your nutrient status can actually affect how your body functions from a thyroid and adrenal connection, because nutrients like selenium, zinc, your B vitamins, vitamin C, they're all critical for both thyroid hormone production and adrenal health. So if your body's like, okay, I need to produce thyroid hormone, but like I actually don't have the ingredients to do this, that can affect both of those systems pretty substantially. Gut issues, we see that. So digestive inflammation is a big one. Things like leaky gut, which, Steph, I know you've talked about quite a bit on the podcast recently. Gut inflammation, that's also a source of inflammation. It might not be systemic. Bloating, poor digestion. Constipation's a huge one that we see. If you guys aren't having bowel movements every day, we got a problem, right? So those are usually a big one.
You're supposed to poop every day, you guys. You're supposed to poop every day.
Not every couple days. Overtraining, over-exercising, we see that a lot. But then on the other end of the spectrum, remember that lack of exercise and lack of movement can also be an issue. Sleep deprivation, also a big one that we see. Poor sleep quality, poor sleep quantity. Make sure you're getting that 8 to 10 hours if you can. We don't want to be surviving on 5 to 6. It might feel okay now, but it ain't going to feel okay from a body perspective, right? Our bodies need so much rest and recovery in order to reset systems and reset hormone communication.
I don't know who you are if you're getting 5 to 6 hours and it feels okay, because I don't think I've ever felt okay with 5 to 6 hours of sleep.
There are some people out there, I'll call my sister, my older sister, I'll call her out. They get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep at night, and she says she's totally fine. They have a very busy life, but I'm like, I don't know how you do it, because I would not function.
No, yeah. I can't. Insane. Okay. So those are all potential causes. And like each of those causes, like there's more stuff into it, right? That can contribute there. And like a note on inflammation is like, inflammation is a massive driver of almost every chronic condition, every like hormonal imbalance, gut health thing. Inflammation plays a massive role. Inflammation blocks fat burning. So if you have high inflammation in your body, you can do everything right and really, really struggle to lose weight, because your body is constantly saying, we have enough, let's store, despite eating less and moving more. And inflammation goes up when cortisol is up. Inflammation goes up when thyroid function is low. So we need to make sure that we are also being aware that inflammation causes cortisol to go up. Inflammation can influence our thyroid to slow down. And so inflammation becomes something that's very big that we need to get down to the root cause. And usually it has some sort of stress. And when we're talking about stress in terms of, what, like the demand on the body and stuff, it's like our body doesn't have enough. We have to think of this in like every capacity in terms of your body is stressed out when it does not have what it needs to meet the demands. This also comes to your mental health. So like if you do not believe that you have the capacity to face challenges, if you don't feel like you have the capacity to deal with a challenging situation, like that's a stress on your body, because like cognitively, you do not think that you have what you need to meet the demand of that specific situation, the person, acceptance, the unworthiness, all of those things. And so that becomes a massive thing that also drives cortisol up. So we don't realize how much those things also impact. And so we actually work really hard with a lot of our clients on the mental health side of stuff, boosting their confidence, talking about like the skills that they actually do have, their identity, who they are, their strengths, what weaknesses that we can support, how do we make them better at certain situations, how do we help them be more successful, acquire the skills and the characteristics to be the person that they want to be. And that mental health capacity side of stuff, it is crazy how much more people accomplish, how quick they get to where they want to be. It's not like super fast, but it accelerates the process for them significantly. Like the people who can get past that aspect of things do see exponential growth in the program. And so it's not just like the energy side of stuff of like, okay, I need to eat enough to meet the demand. That's massive. But there is also like the mental health side of stuff where we do need to work on that as well. And so now let's talk about the menopause connection, because that's what we talk about here, right? Hormones. So what happens in the menopause transition that makes this connection even more important / worse, right? Because like we talked about, it sucks when our hormones start to go down. It feels like everything's falling apart. And this might seem kind of redundant because we want to connect everything specifically to perimenopause and menopause here as well. And we've touched on a few of those things, but we know that during menopause, the thyroid adrenal axis, that connection between the two, is significantly impacted due to the hormonal shifts, particularly that decline of our gal estrogen and her best friend progesterone. But sometimes even testosterone can influence this. And we did just talk about testosterone not that long ago. We talked about androgens on a podcast not that long ago as well, that you can go and listen to specifically about hormonal changes there and how that impacts your body and blood sugar and can contribute to this as well. And these changes can not only just disrupt both your thyroid function and your adrenal health, but it can also decrease our stress threshold, making the negative side effects of stress and on our thyroid that much easier. So before you had like this dinner plate, this is a 10 out of 10. You could handle a 10 out of 10 of stress. That plate is full. You have not taken anything off that plate. You haven't changed anything. You haven't made any different choices. But estrogen declines. Now that dinner plate now turns into a side salad plate. So now you haven't changed anything, but internally you have, and you can't handle that same amount of stress that you had before. And so now you can only handle a 6 out of 10 before that plate spills over and cortisol goes up. And then if we're still not addressing things, guess what? That stress tanks your hormones even more. And so now that side salad plate goes into like a little dessert plate. And then it goes into one of those little plates that you put like your little tea bag on, you know? And like, that's not effective. We can't handle anything at that point. And this is where it feels like your life is freaking falling apart. And so we need to make that plate bigger a little bit as best as we can. It's never probably going to be that 10 out of 10 because estrogen's never going to be right back to where we need it to be, right? We need to learn how can we buffer stress and like scoop some of that stress off and put it on a different plate. And this is where like eating enough food and buffering stress, the right activities, the right kind of exercise, pulling back in certain areas can help you get to where you want to be. Like for myself, my estrogen and progesterone were like so close to the postmenopausal range. It was crazy. My cortisol through the roof. So you know what I had to do? I had to pull back on exercise. I was supposed to go back to working out this week. I'm not. I'm taking another 2 weeks off because I've got travel coming up. I still don't feel like great. My sleep is finally improving now, but I'm like not in a place where my body is going to be able to push. So I've had to pull back, but you know what? I'm down 7 pounds. So like, yeah, like the inflammation dropped so much on me. And like, I mean, I tried to push into a fat loss phase. I lost like 2 pounds and I gained all that back and then some. And it didn't feel very good. I was waking up at nighttime. I was super bloated. Everything I ate seemed to bother me. Like I was like super emotional. Everything was making me upset. I was really reactive. Like I had no energy. I was having energy crashes, which I like hadn't had in forever. Like I was not doing well. And so this is where understanding how much this impacts your body makes a big difference, because my body wasn't able to handle it because I don't have the hormones there to support it right now. And so I need to spend a significant amount of time working on this, lowering that inflammation by lowering that stress. And now my body's good at burning calories without dropping the calories. It's opening those fat burning pathways is what we want. And this is very classic of what we see in perimenopause and menopause. And so we need to understand that the increased stress on our adrenals because of these hormone shifts, right? We have more stress that we're dealing with. Like our ovarian production is going to start declining, right? This is normal. This happens as we age. The adrenal glands are supposed to help take over the production of some of those hormones, the estrogen and the progesterone and your testosterone and your androgens. But if your adrenals are working so hard because you are already so stressed, guess what? And you're already going into menopause in that situation, you are going to struggle so much with that stress threshold, and it is going to suck. Energy is going to tank. It is not going to be a good situation for you. And then we also know that estrogen dominance, and like, let's talk about estrogen and progesterone here, like estrogen dominance, even if you have low estrogen levels altogether, if you have too much estrogen compared to progesterone, so both can suck. But if estrogen's higher than progesterone, we know that that is going to cause an increase in thyroid binding globulin, which makes less thyroid hormone available for use. So your thyroid's already struggling, and then you have even less that you can use to support you with energy. Your body gets worse at burning calories. Very easy for the weight to pile on, especially around our belly, right? And then we have that progesterone going down. And guess what? Progesterone's the hormone that makes us feel relaxed and calm, and we're not reactive. People can say mean things and we're like, I know I'm great. It's fine. The dishes I'll do them later. It's not a big deal. You leave that empty cup on the counter. It's fine. I'll get it later. It's not a big deal, right? Like we're calm and we're like, everyone's like that. I don't have that. Yeah, I didn't either. Like it's not a good situation to be in. We are working real hard to get these progesterone levels up because you know what? Our partners love when we have progesterone because we are way kinder and they can get away with way more. Yeah. And our kids love it too because they can do crazy things and we're not snapping at them every 2 seconds. They can get away with a lot more when we have progesterone. So they love when we have progesterone. And we also know that if we don't have that progesterone, we're going to see that increased stress response, right? More strain on the body. We're reactive and we're getting like upset more easily. That's going to cause stress to go up even more. We're going to see a slower metabolism. We're going to see the weight gain. We're going to have more inflammation. We're going to have fat storing. And we also know estrogen and progesterone keep inflammation down. So we already have kind of a disadvantage there with inflammation driving cortisol up and slowing down our thyroid. So perimenopause and menopause does play a big role here. And we need to remember that because the thyroid controls metabolism, how good your body is at burning calories, if it is slow during menopause, it can make your menopause symptoms significantly worse. And so we think that's more like estrogen related, like the weight gain, the fatigue, the cold intolerances, right? But then also we have those higher cortisol levels that can also contribute to that. And it's just like, it's kind of the perfect storm. So if you are not going into menopause in a good position, which most people are not because we've been doing all the wrong things for a very long time, it feels like you got hit by a truck. That truck went in reverse, ran you over again, and then flipped it forward and just got you one more time on the way out. Like it's hard. It's challenging. And this is why understanding how your body works to work with it, what the root causes are, treating those instead of the symptoms is so key and so important in what we do in our coaching. Then we also have like blood sugar imbalances and insulin resistance. We know that low estrogen, insulin resistance goes up, making blood sugar way more erratic. We know that in a high stress situation, blood sugar gets way worse. That is not good, right? And so we're going to see more insulin resistance, sugar cravings, low energy, weight gain. We're going to see shuttling, pushing us into that fat storing pathway, keeping that really turned on. And that's also going to affect your thyroid function, your inflammatory pathways, making weight loss feel pretty almost impossible, right? And so we do have some common symptoms of like thyroid adrenal dysfunction in menopause specifically. So we have fatigue that's worse in the morning or mid-afternoon. So you get really tired. We see weight gain in the belly, particularly despite eating less, despite moving more, despite hitting your macros, right? Because that's not the problem. We have brain fog issues. We have memory issues, difficulty concentration. We have sleep disturbances. This is the insomnia, the waking up at 1 to 3 a.m., unrefreshing sleep. You sleep for a long time and you wake up and you're like, how do I not have energy? I slept 8 hours, right? You have hair that's thinning, you have dry skin, you have brittle nails, mood swings, anxiety, depression that you may not have struggled with before, or it's getting significantly worse, cold hands and feet. This is a sign of a slow metabolism, and muscle and joint pain. And so these are a combination of like low estrogen, increasing inflammation, which is going to increase cortisol. Cortisol is increasing, causing issues here, low thyroid function. So it's like this cascade of how everything really works together. And so if this is already kind of happening under the surface, it makes like when you hit menopause, it can make it like your symptoms so much worse.
Yeah, and I, it's so interesting to me, and it should be very interesting to everyone else to observe for you, Steph, because you had just kind of used your own example here where you stopped doing all of the things that, from an objective perspective, we would kind of look at as like the right things to do, even for you from our perspective. I was
dialed. Yeah. I was good, like good nutrition, the right foods, whole foods, in a calorie deficit, hitting my protein, going to the gym 3 days a week. I was getting my steps in. I was, going to sleep at the right times, like doing all the right things, and my body just fell apart.
It just still wasn't enough. Yeah. And that should be a really big sign for other people who might be listening to this, that you could still think that you're doing all the right things, but if your body is still not responding, then we have a bigger problem. Because even for you, you were not over-exercising. You were not technically under-eating drastically. I know you were in a fat loss phase for a little bit, but then you came out of it. Like there were no signs from an objective perspective that you needed to completely cut like the exercise out for a while and to really turn everything in the other direction to fully support what your body was going through, because you were doing the right things. You were only working out 3 days a week. You were doing your heavy resistance training, and it just still was too much for your body, no matter how you perceived it in terms of stress.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt fine until I didn't feel good, right? I was like, it's going good. And all of a sudden it was just like, again, hit by a truck, like completely felt like I was falling apart, like mentally, physically, panicking about it, even though I'm a coach and I'm just like, something is not right, because like I'm not eating so low calorie that this should be an issue. Like I was like, something's not right. So that's why I did the Dutch test, and it was like, oh, it's because you have no hormones and your stress is super high and your androgens are really high and we got some inflammation going on and your liver needs a little extra love. And so it's been nice to be able to go through this, as I went through this quite a few years ago. And now it's like, okay, we're here. I know I can do it, but like, it sucks, right? And it's just something that I need to be aware of truthfully for the rest of my life, of like, yeah, my body has a very low stress threshold. It needs extra time. I can't diet often. I can't diet long. I can't diet low. I need to really pay attention to these things. And unfortunately, it is something that is going to be a lifelong thing that I need to be aware of. And it's never going to be forever fixed. It's just, I'm not going to, like, low carb probably is something I will never, ever be able to do. And not that I want to, but like that would never likely be an option for me, because my body would probably crash, to be honest.
And for anyone listening too, I think just understanding that your history plays a big role in how your body not only functions now, but I really, encourage everyone to stop comparing themselves to other people's journeys or other people's stories or what other people are doing. Because even for you, Steph, we could be sitting here and say, okay, well, all of the childhood trauma that you went through and all of the grief that you went through with your mom a few years ago, like all of this stuff, yes, we have to accept as creating the situation that your body just has this low stress threshold. And we could be sitting here and saying, this isn't fair. This shouldn't be happening to me. I'm doing all the right things. I'm working so hard for this, and my body is still working against me, when really we have to step back and understand that these layers of stress that our body has been through is something we have to be okay with, and we actually have to work with, no matter how unfair it might feel.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, you have the hand that you were dealt, right? And you can feel like it's not fair because I have to do things this way, or it's not fair because my body's reacting that way. Your body is just trying to keep you alive. That's like literally all it's doing. And so You need to learn to work with your body, your hormones, your specific like physiology and your past. And this is where a lot of people get burned by a lot of coaches, is that they don't take the time to understand how deep this actually like goes. And they don't understand that it's not just calories in, calories out. It's not just hitting the perfect macro targets. Like, we need to understand the underlying root cause. And I hate when people are just like, well, you're not in a calorie deficit then. And I'm like, I was in a calorie deficit and I was losing weight until I wasn't. And then boom, I started gaining weight at 1,500 calories. Like, that shouldn't be happening, right? And now I'm losing weight at like 2,100. So it's not just calories in, calories out. There is so much more that goes into this. And so this is where hormones and stress and thyroid and everything comes into play, and really understanding how that impacts your body. Because like, I get so pissed off when people are like, honey, you're just not working hard enough. Someone commented that on one of my posts the other day of like, low testosterone's making weight loss really hard. And she's like, I have 3 kids and I'm half the size of you.
Whoa.
And I'm like, A, I don't think I'm that big of a human being. 2, you made a lot of spelling mistakes. So double check. Like, if you're going to be mean, at least spell it right. And 3, like, that just goes to show how little people really genuinely understand. And awesome, you got dealt a better hand. Good for you. That's amazing. A lot of people do not have that. Like, the majority of people do not have that. And it is a steep learning curve. And to just say work harder is like the most offensive thing that you can say.
And a lot of us, we are working
because
hard.
like hard work doesn't always pay off if it's not the right thing. That's the thing. Like, you can work really, really hard. I'm going to dig a hole to China. Guess what? If I'm off by like 5 degrees, I can work really hard for my entire life. And let's say I actually get there, like get to the other side. I could be so far away because I've been working hard with just like the wrong direction just a little bit. Like, it could set me off course so long. So this is where people need to understand this stuff and how it is so important, because yeah, I get really pissed off sometimes because I'm like, it's simple, but it's not simple, because the human body is complex, because it's not just this is how it works. It's like, yeah, that's how it works in a vacuum. We live a life and we have stress and we have a past and we have all these things that we've been through that are going to contribute to this.
Yeah.
So, okay, anyways, let's talk about how to support your thyroid, support the stress response, so that you guys can fix the things like I fixed my things, or am fixing my things. I shouldn't say I'm not fixed. There's no way I'm like back to where I need to be, but like we're clearly moving in the right direction. So how do we fix
Well,
this?
the first thing we're going to do is we're going to support our adrenal function. So guess what? Let's de-stress. I know it's usually the first thing that we talk about. We cannot, like, we are going to repeat this until the cows come home. We don't care. You need to reduce stress. I think the first thing that we probably need to do for most of us is take a step back and understand what is actual stress on my body, because a lot of us don't, right? It's example for you again, Steph. Like, we have to understand that, yeah, we had some traumatic childhood issues that probably caused a really low stress threshold to begin with. Then you had a lot of grief come up. Like, there are a lot of things that we're looking at as layers previously that can cause a really sensitive body. Then now we're postpartum. So we have that extra layer of stress that we now have to deal with. And now we have a baby.
Growing a human is stressful. Yes. Yeah, growing a human is stressful, and then raising a human is stressful.
And there's so many of these layers. And then again, like, you're a business owner, you're constantly working, no matter how hard you try to turn things off. You're always like, Steph will text me at like 9 p.m. and be like, I've been doing this. I'm like, aren't you in bed? Like, what are you doing, Steph?
I'm like, what do you think about this idea? And she's like, go to sleep.
So like, there's just these layers that no matter how enjoyable they might be, we should identify that they are layers of stress. And even, you know, if you're listening, make a list, start a list. What am I doing right now that is a layer of stress for myself? What am I doing right now that is causing me some stress that it might, whether good or bad, right? So let's support the adrenal functions. Let's reduce some stress. Let's work on our sleep hygiene, because that's going to be a stress thing as well. Incorporate some box breathing, put your feet up, do some meditation, do some deep breathing exercises, whatever that looks like. Steph, I know you have a couple podcasts on like actual adrenal support and de-stressing, but make sure that you are working on de-stressing consistently. A lot of our clients, depending on their assessment results, will give them different things, but most of our clients have to do something every day to help regulate their nervous system, which is a little bit different than just doing self-care for some of us, because self-care is great, but it might not be targeted targeting like the nervous system issues that we have. So make sure that you are identifying what your layers of stress are, and then also doing things to not only regulate how your body handles it, but are there layers of stress that we can actually take care of and that we can actually control to make those layers a little bit less heavy on the way that our body has to deal with life. The next thing is going to be eating consistently, because consistency creates safety and it also creates support for internal body systems. Remember, when we are consistent with our energy intake, we have to always remember that regardless of what our hormones are doing and things like that, which are affected by what we're doing from an energy perspective, but our body runs on calories and food. If you don't eat, you don't live. That's how our body functions. So if we are not consistently giving our body the fuel that it needs to create not only predictability, but set its thermostat consistently at the right level, so we're not like, our body's not like, oh, am I getting 800 calories tomorrow or am I getting a pizza party tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Let's just make sure that we're giving it nice whole foods and that we're eating the very similar amounts or the same amount of food every single day, preferably with structured meals throughout the day, because that creates more of that predictability and consistency on our body systems as well.
And when we talk about stress, like, I totally acknowledge that we can't remove all stress from our life, right? Like, we know that's not realistic. And so this is where learning to buffer stress by eating enough foods, like eating enough foods, eating enough carbs, eating enough calories, like consistently day to day. Like, this is a way to buffer stress. And this is the way we do it with the majority of our clients. And it's amazing. And we also need to be aware that we are just go, go, go all the time. Before you go on your lunch break, sit and take 10 slow, deep breaths, like as slow as you can, because we never give our body the opportunity to come out of that fight or flight state. And this is what we mean about like doing some of the, like the breath work and stuff. It doesn't have to be like this wild, long meditation type thing. Just, when's the last time you just like stopped? You didn't like listen to any music, have any input coming in, where you're actually awake and not asleep. And you are just sitting there and just focusing on lowering your heart rate, lowering your breathing rate. We need to be able to do that. We need to be able to like decompress and bring our heart rate and breathing rate down. And a lot of us think that we can just scroll to do this, but that actually raises your cortisol levels. Like, we need to just learn to be and like lower heart rate and breathing rate. Very, very important. So the next thing is working on balancing your blood sugars. This is what we talked about before: eating protein, fiber, healthy fats, making sure that you're eating some of your protein and veggies first before dipping into your carbs. That's going to help slow how quickly your stomach empties. And that's going to avoid a blood sugar spike and drop. We want that slow increase. It maintains, then slowly comes down. Because if we're struggling with those blood sugar spikes, we're going straight into that storage pathway. Stress is going to go up. Thyroid function is going to suffer. Not a good situation to be in. We also like to recommend not drinking coffee on an empty stomach, because drinking caffeine speeds up the emptying of your stomach. And so it's going to speed up, like your blood sugar is going to spike from that for most people. So we want to make sure that you are having coffee after you eat in the mornings. This is a thing that we do with all of our clients, and it's been so good. So good, because caffeine is also going to suppress your appetite and make it harder to eat too. Lots of us just have coffee for breakfast. Not a good situation to be in. We're not doing that anymore. So supporting our thyroid health, we want to make sure that you're eating enough iodine, selenium, zinc, B vitamins when they are needed. Avoid tons of processed foods. This means even your health foods. So the keto wraps, the keto breads, the protein bars, the protein pancakes, the protein cookies, the protein Pop-Tarts, like those are all highly processed foods. Just because it says keto or low carb does not mean that it is quote unquote healthy. It is still highly processed. There's lots of sugar, alcohols, and things like that in there that can actually trigger a lot of inflammation in many people. So being aware of that, but then also like we're talking sodas, we're talking like chips and cookies and pastries and chocolate bars and, all the classic things that we typically think about. And then paying attention to regular exercise. We want strength training. Okay, getting some walking in, super great. That's going to help with your metabolism, your blood sugars, your hormone balance, but strength training to build muscle, because that's going to help with your stress resiliency, with your hormones, with your blood sugar. So this means lifting heavy. We're trying to get stronger every single week. If you're doing random YouTube videos and going to random fitness classes, the F45s, the Orange Theories, the spin classes, the boot camps, the rest times of only 1 minute, that's just glorified cardio with weights, and it's just random. We want structure where you're following the same program every single week. for 4 to 6 weeks. Every Monday's going to look the same. Wednesday looks different from Monday, but every Wednesday looks the same. Every Friday looks the same. If you're doing 3 days a week, we're doing full body because that way we're hitting our muscle groups often enough. And this is exactly how we program with our workout subscription program, because you are hitting the muscle groups consistently enough with enough break, challenging yourself to get stronger, long enough rest periods to fully recover, to be able to send that muscle building signal, which decreases in perimenopause and menopause, to really help you look fit, to look toned, to build that muscle mass so that you have better blood sugar control, so your cholesterol levels get better, so that you have more energy, that you actually look fit and toned. When you lose weight, you have some muscle to show underneath of it. Otherwise, you're just like a smaller, soft version of yourself, right? And then people get disappointed they don't look the way they thought they would look. And so we program specifically this way because we know that it works. Like, I did my kin degree, I did my master's in kin, like, this was like such a big part of my life for so long. The science is so solid on what that programming needs to look at or look like to facilitate change, especially in women like 40 plus. But I mean, this is the way I trained for many years, because my 20s, my 30s, because that's how you're going to see the most change. And a lot of people spend their entire life working out thinking they have to be super sweaty, heart rate has to be super high, and then you never look the way that you want to look. And this is part of the reason why. So doing proper strength training, so good for your hormones, so good for stress, so good for your thyroid. And so this is where doing that and pairing things like walking is amazing, and you will transform your body. And that's how we train with all of our clients. Once they're at a point that they could do cardio, then we can add that back in. For a lot of people, we need to pull it out for a decent amount of time to allow their body to, change the way that we want it to change.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch a little bit on stress, just with all of the things that we talked about improvement on as well. And we've talked about this a lot before, Steph, but remember that, like Steph had mentioned, where we want to have a really good mindset about this, and we don't want to add extra stress by trying to be stressing about all these things to now do right? Yeah. Because that's negating the purpose of us doing these things that are right. So I do want you to make sure, if you're listening to this, don't just try to take everything out of your life if you have an issue, or don't just try to, if, for instance, if you drink a protein shake every couple of days and it's part of a smoothie, don't think that that's an issue and that you need to cut it out and now you're not hitting your protein goal and that's causing more stress, right? So just make sure that you're not stressing about the things that you need to fix. These should be things that we can have a very calm or moderate mindset about. So just a reminder, don't stress about it, but we do want to try to work to actively change some of these things if there is definitely a change here that is needed.
Yeah, people stress about stress.
I will always quote my one client. She'll laugh when she listens to this because she'll know it's her. There were several weeks where every single check-in I had to call her out, and I was like, lady, you're stressed about not getting in your de-stressing. You gotta stop, right? Like, she's like, I don't know where to fit it in. Like, I'm so stressed about not being able to fit in my box breathing. And I'm like, this is ruining the purpose. Like, we need to stop worrying about this. The one thing that we could also do, which we had talked about previously, is get some testing done. Go check your thyroid. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before on our very first thyroid podcast together. Go test your TSH, test your T3, test your T4, test your reverse T3. I would throw in there some thyroid antibodies as well, because antibodies are an immune system response that can tell us some issues as well. Test your adrenals. Go get your cortisol tested. Go try to get your DHEA tested. Get your sex hormones tested if you can. You can try it via blood testing or use a Dutch test to look at your sex hormones and cortisol curve throughout the day. We find those very reliable. Urine metabolite tests are considered, quote unquote, the gold standard for some of these hormones. So it's really nice to be able to see your DHEAS levels and your DHT levels and things like that. And also go look at your nutrient status. So B12, iron, calcium, go get it all tested. Go get your liver function tested. Go get a metabolic panel, even your cholesterol and your A1C. Go get some numbers so that you have a starting place, or you at least have some updated numbers for yourself.
Yeah, and you want to look at those trends over time from previous labs, right? So for myself, I did a Dutch test quite a few years ago, and then I just did one now. And so Progesterone and estrogen were up like a little bit, yay, but like still so low. But so like I could have been like, oh, so that's not bad. Like I'm improving. However, like we looked at other markers and it's like, oh, like we're seeing like there's quite a bit of stress, like likely coming in your liver. We're struggling with some detox pathways. And so being able to get like a nice full picture so you can see, because it's not just what's that absolute value. We want to know, like, is your body good at breaking things down? What is it prioritizing? Is it taking DHEA and is it turning it into estrogen, or is it shuttling it down to your androgens like it is for me, right? Like we need to understand, because it might be like, oh, your DHEA is low. We'll just pump you full of that. Well, actually, if I were to get pumped full of DHEA, my androgen dominance would get really, really bad, because that's the pathway my body is favoring. So this is why we like the Dutch test, because we can make such much more informed decisions and understand, and pairing that with your symptoms and your health history to really understand what's going on in your body and why. And so the last thing that you can also consider is using some adaptogens, herbs like ashwagandha, not if you're on thyroid medications though, so be aware of that. Rhodiola, holy basil, they both support your thyroid and your adrenals. Do not take those without talking to your pharmacist or doctor about the other medications that you're on, because there can be some contraindications and like interference there. So you do always want to be aware of that. Something that's always great that we love is recommending taking a vitamin B50, taking magnesium, because we know those things help so much with hormones and your stress response and energy. And so those are always going to help, and they're always safe. We have a supplement guide if you guys want that you can always reach out to us, and we'll send it over with like dosage for different things, and everything on there will tell you like if it's appropriate to take and why you would take it and stuff like that. And that's a free resource for you guys as well. So again, I was like, man, we're going to have a short one, Kariana. No, we're at an hour.
Guys.
This happens every time. We just get on tangents every time. But I hope this was helpful. I hope this was helpful to understand like the thyroid and the cortisol connection, your adrenals, your hormones, how it pertains to fat loss, things that you can do. But again, the things that are going to be best for you are going to be dependent on a lot of like the assessments that we do in coaching and stuff like that. We do a little bit of an assessment with you when you book your consultation calls. So those are free. Our first one is always free. You come in, you put in all your information. We ask you a bajillion questions on that call to get some more clarity and really understand you better, and give you some guidelines as to where your nutrition needs to get to, or where it should be, and the first couple changes that you can make to start moving in the right direction. Because again, on these podcasts, we give you guys so much information and so many action steps that you can take. So it can be overwhelming to know, what should I do first? Because, you know, like if you're golfing, you're going to use the putter at some point. But if you're using the putter to tee off, like you're going to be frustrated and pissed off and feel like you're sucking and that nothing is working, right? So like being able to understand what tool or what lever to pull first to build some momentum and start feeling better is really, really important, because otherwise, if you're just doing random stuff and you're not really sure, it can be really challenging. So if you want to book that, it's in the show notes for you as well. Any closing thoughts, Kariana?
I think we covered so much. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. We try not to get too sciencey about it this time. So hopefully that worked too. Give us some feedback.
We're just nerds at heart. It's hard.
It is. I think the one thing I will say is, especially with that mention of the adaptogens, just remember that supplements are very supplemental. So if you're not doing everything else first, then don't waste your money on the supplements, because they probably won't work.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. We love you so much. Share this with all your friends, everyone who needs it. And if you need that consultation call or that supplement guide, you guys can grab it in the show notes. We love you so, so much. And we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.